Okay, you ready?
Ready. Willing and able.
This is the AT Banter podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter. My name is Rob Minot, and joining me today, Mr. Ryan Fleury.
I'm Mr. Cowbell today.
Yeah, Steve Barclay is not here today. He's out on vacation. But we do have a special guest here in the room.
We do?
Yeah, didn't you see that large elephant over there in the corner?
No.
Yeah, there's an elephant in the room.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people out there
are wondering
what happened last week. Where is that 150th episode?
That's now known as the missing episode.
It didn't materialize. What happened, guys?
Yeah, well, all we can say is the show became a disaster, and there really wasn't a whole lot worth pushing out to you, so...
Oh, we can say a lot more than that.
No, we shouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know we can, but we shouldn't. Let us just say, because our audience knows us well enough, there were shots involved.
There were, yeah. There were. It's true. Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
No, you know what? It's the portions of it may materialize at some in some capacity in the future, but no, we listened to it the next morning, and we made, well, I shouldn't say the next morning. A couple days later. Truth be told, we had a show the next day,
yes.
And Ryan might have been a little late to getting there.
Hey, but you know what?
You got there.
I got there, and I was only like 2 hours late.
Yeah, that's true.
It didn't start till 10, and I got there before noon. Yes. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, well, listen.
I made it.
But it was a good time.
No, it wasn't a good time.
Oh, I had a good time.
Well, the drinking part was a good time. The after effects, not a good time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
no, just ask my wife.
Well, listen, that's what happens with tequila. You lose track of what you're drinking.
And you sit on the floor and stare at your shoes for 10 minutes.
I was sitting here watching it, and I don't know, I didn't really see you drinking all that much. I was actually pretty shocked when we took off the headphones to go out for dinner, and you were a little...
I was fine at that point till we got up the stairs and I went to put my shoes on.
Yeah, that's
and
what
then everything just kind of
hits you
fell
all of a
apart.
sudden.
Yep.
But we had a good time. There's 150 episodes, so it was a bit of a milestone for us. And the one thing from that episode, though, that we want to make sure that we get out there, though, is that we appreciate our listeners. That everybody who's stuck with us for 150 episodes of this thing. We love very much, and we appreciate all the support that everyone's given us over the last 3 years, and every single one of our guests that have donated their time to talk to us here in the Guitar Dungeon. We appreciate very much. So that's the one thing that we want to make sure that isn't missing in that episode. The rest of it, we may... But we do have to give a shout out to another one of our listeners, though, who did join us for a good portion of it, and we talked to for quite a while, and who we will most likely have on the show at some point, because he has a really interesting story, is our good friend Shan.
Yep, absolutely. He's got quite an interesting life.
He does, so we will probably have him on again. And so that everybody gets to hear his story. But we have to give a big thank you for him for joining us for most of it. And it's a shame that most of, well, all of it hit the cutting room floor. But we'll have him on again. We'll have him on again.
To be fair, probably the first 10 minutes are okay. And like I said, I only got to like the Shan part of the interview, and then I just didn't get back to it. I don't know if you listened to the whole thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, it probably just fell apart from there.
Yes. So there you go, everybody. So for all the super fans, the 150 is going to be a lost episode for now. We're on to 151. Back to normal. Woo-hoo. So, given that, Ryan.
Rob.
What are we doing today?
Today, our very special guest is Dr. Amy Kavanagh, who is a partially sighted activist, creator of the Twitter hashtag #JustAskDon'tGrab, and a blog called Cane Adventures.
Yeah, we've been following her on Twitter for quite a while, I feel like. And we've been actually trying to get her on the show. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, she's been on some other shows, and I listened to some other interviews that she's done, and she speaks very openly and honestly about dealing with the use of a cane and transitioning to a guide dog, and she's got a very interesting story to tell. So it should be fun.
Yeah. So we will be bringing her on a little bit later, but first, let's do some news. So now, did you see this, Ryan? Lego has created some new Braille bricks as part of a new Lego set that they're releasing.
Yeah, I did see that headline.
Lego has created a new line of blocks studded with letters and numbers from the Braille alphabet to help teach the language to children with visual impairments. The blocks are set for a full launch in 2020 and will also have printed letters, numbers, and symbols which sighted people can use to read. There are 250 bricks as part of Lego's new line, and the company said that they will be fully compatible with Lego's standard blocks. Now that would be a piss off if they actually made it so that you couldn't actually use them with regular Lego.
Well, I was just thinking though, weren't regular Lego, didn't they have like the 6 bumps on the top anyway?
They
and
did,
Braille
sure.
is based on 6 dots.
Sure, but I mean, those are what fit into like the interconnecting blocks, so you don't see them. So I'm assuming that these,
right?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where on the brick the Braille would be, but in any case, the idea behind it, of course, is to encourage Braille literacy in children, which is always good. The article goes on, talks about the CNIB survey that was done in January, where they found that 70% of working age people who are blind or partially sighted are unemployed.
Yep.
And 10% of...
And that number's probably low.
70%? Really? You think 70% is low, eh?
Yeah. I think there's people that, they just don't know of.
Interesting. They also say that less than 10% of the 830,000 Canadians who are visually impaired are Braille literate.
Isn't that scary?
That is a little surprising to me.
Now, I wonder if it'd be interesting to look at the survey and see what the demographics were, because like kids nowadays who are, partially sighted or totally blind are learning Braille at an early age, right, in schools and stuff. So,
but wasn't it always that way? I mean,
well,
you would think.
Maybe, but there's a generation of baby boomers now who are losing their sight later in life, and chances are they're never going to learn Braille, or maybe have no interest in learning Braille, or for some reason can't learn Braille. But, for the last, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, even when kids were institutionalized, you would think that they were being taught Braille at a young age. But, we hear a lot more about Braille literacy now than we ever did before.
We do, but it's a real, it's a real push these days. My understanding was that the advent of screen readers and, digital audiobooks and stuff somewhat mitigated that. Yeah, a lot of people, I think, when screen readers especially became fairly ubiquitous, people just decided that they didn't really need to learn Braille because they had a screen reader.
Yeah, and, the argument has always been that listening to something is not reading something, right? True literacy is being able to read and write.
Yeah, well,
and
sure.
For somebody who's blind or partially sighted, that means Braille. Listening to JAWS or NVDA on your computer or listening to an audiobook is a different way of absorbing the material than actually physically touching it, feeling it, reading it, absorbing it. You absorb the information in a different way.
Yeah, it's just great to see Braille literacy being pushed, especially from something like a mainstream company like Lego. So,
good
for
job,
them.
Lego.
Yeah, good for them. And that's where you got to hit them. You got to hit them early.
Yep.
So, and not only that, it's educating sighted kids as well. Letting them know that Braille is a thing, understanding it a little bit better.
Well, and it makes, play inclusive, right? Lego's Lego, whether there's Braille on it or not. Bricks are bricks, and kids will be able to play with their sighted peers. We can all build the Death Star together.
That's right. Now, if only they could make those bricks so they didn't hurt when you stepped on them, because that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is interesting. Microsoft is making VR better for those with vision problems. Microsoft has made a toolkit that they're calling Seeing VR. They've included 14 tools that include a bifocal lens, a magnifier, controls to adjust for brightness and contrast, edge enhancement, and depth measurements. Assumingly so that the developers who are developing for the platform can build in these tools into whatever, whether it's a game that they're developing or any other sort of VR app that could build in these accessibility options right into the game. We've talked about the Xbox Adaptive Controller, and we've talked about some of the other accessibility features that are built into both the PlayStation and the Xbox. Gaming and accessibility is really taking some big leaps forward, and I'm really happy to see this because as we know, we have a real experience with using the VR platform with vision enhancement. There's a few products out there on the market that use a VR platform for things like magnification and edge enhancement and all that sort of stuff. So it's really cool to see that Microsoft is actually actively building toolkits for developers for mainstream developers to sort of take that and bake those features right into mainstream products. Hopefully that's the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we saw what they did with Seeing AI. So, and that was just, I think, a Microsoft Garage app, right? So if they're actually putting some energy, efforts, and money into Seeing VR, the sky's the limit. It's kind of exciting.
It's shocking to me that how many articles I see these days about Microsoft and accessibility, and really not a heck of a lot from Apple.
Yeah.
It's like the tables have turned.
Yep.
It's like Microsoft is taking the football that Apple ran down the field, and now they're continuing to run with it. I don't know. Maybe Apple just has other fish to fry. I don't know what's going on with them, but when's their big Apple event?
WWDC, I believe, is in June, so it's not far behind.
So this is going to be an interesting few weeks because we have of course the Google event going on this week, and we've got like as you said, the Microsoft event going on, and then we'll have the Apple event. Maybe that will shake things up a little bit. Maybe we'll see some advancements with Apple. Time will tell.
Yeah, it's an exciting time because, we're hearing some things from Microsoft, and like you mentioned, Google I/O is happening right now, and there's a bunch of accessibility events that they're hosting as well. So there's going to be a lot of news coming out in the next few weeks.
Well, I hope so, because I don't know, I was a little underwhelmed by the accessibility news that came out of Google last year.
Yeah,
out of their I/O event, there wasn't really a lot. The previous year, they made some pretty big leaps forward, but last year not so much. So we'll see. We need to get that Lookout app going.
Yeah, we can definitely talk to them about it. We have them coming up on the show.
Oh, really?
We do. I have them booked.
Look at you teasing, tickling the audience with a feather.
Tickle. Yeah.
Ah.
Who's got your belly? Who's got your belly?
Hey, Steve, why don't you tell the fine folks about Canadian assistive technology?
Well, Canadian Assistive Technology is a Canadian-based distributor of, guess what? Assistive technology.
I would not have guessed that.
Really? Oh, I got to work something better into the name then. And we do all kinds of low vision and blindness aids, as well as all kinds of physical access aids and accessible furniture. You name it. Visit our website at www.canastech.com.
Rick, let me ask you about this. Chaos Technical Services.
Chaos Technical Services.
Don't sound so excited about it. Woo! Speaking of repairs.
We are the sister company to Canastech. We do the repairs on low vision devices, reading machines, for libraries, Braille printers, and pretty well anything in between. We can be found at www.chaostechnicalservices.com.
Joining us now is Dr. Amy Kavanagh. Good evening.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. Well, I am Ryan, and joining me in the room is my colleague, Rob Minot.
Hello there.
Hey.
I guess your day is over. You're settled in for the evening?
Well, I might be going out to the pub after this.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Londoners in the pub.
trust us, you're going to need a drink after you talk to us.
Uh-oh. Be kind. Be gentle.
We are.
Well, listen, hey, we really appreciate you taking some time out to talk to us, especially given that it's eating into your pub night.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's unforgivable.
So hurry up, you guys.
Yeah, well, at least I didn't have to get up early or anything. It's the right way around for me.
Well, where to start? Well, listen, why don't we start by just maybe just giving us a brief snapshot of your visual impairment.
So I'm a bit of a medical mystery. I was born visually impaired. I received a diagnosis of idiopathic nystagmus, which basically translates as you're kind of broke. We don't know why. This is what it looks like a bit.
Okay.
So for many years, I've not had because nystagmus rarely exists in like isolation unless it's a result of trauma.
Right.
Like a brain injury, stroke, something like that. So it does exist in isolation in some people, but I have other stuff. So I don't have very good depth perception. I don't really have much in the way of peripheral vision. I'm very light sensitive, artificial light, sunlight, pretty much live in sunglasses a lot of the time. I'm very short-sighted. Some of that is corrected with glasses, but not all the time.
Right.
And because of the nystagmus, which is the kind of uncontrolled movement of the eye, I try to describe it to sighted people. I mean, not that I really know, because having been born like this, I don't know what it's like to see for them. But other people have described it, and I kind of steal this when you get out your iPhone camera and it's being a bit slow and it goes in and out of focus, in and out of focus. And that's kind of how I see the world. I talk about a bubble, on a good day, a couple of meters away, I can recognize a face, read a big bus number. But end of the day, tired, stressed, peckish, bit drunk. That bubble of detail can reduce down to sort of an inch in front of my nose.
Right.
I can read large text most of the time, but I am trying to anticipate and skill up, and also have those skills for when it's too painful or difficult to do, looking at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think one of the hardest things I always find is that I have to explain to people that my vision isn't the same hour to hour, and I walk into a bright, sunny morning and I got nothing,
Right.
So that's kind of me. I'm a mix. I'm going through finally, because the genetic testing has got a lot better now.
Right.
They're going to see if they think I might have a rare form of ocular albinism.
Okay.
So they're going to test for that, and they're trying a lot of new tests. But yeah, I was told a couple of weeks ago that I am atypical. which I kind of liked.
Nothing wrong with that.
But, you know, it also makes for a very long answer. Like, I wish I was just like, retinitis pigmentosa, go, you know. But yeah,
But everybody's got that. Who wants that? Everybody has that.
Yeah, I know. God, it's so like, so 2017, guys.
Well, now, and has it stayed pretty much the same over the years?
The short-sightedness has got worse. And I think the whole being in massive denial about being visually impaired and using no aids or technology for most of my adult life did not help.
Right.
And I think I wrecked my eyes a bit doing too much academia. So my uncorrected vision has changed quite significantly. So that's gone from like 624 to like 660 uncorrected. So without my glasses on, I'm technically legally blind in the UK. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of pushing for that because there's, like I say, there's a lot of times in the day where it doesn't matter if I've got my glasses on because my eyes are too tired or it's bright or whatever. But, you know, as I'm sure you guys are familiar with, the whole certification, it's a bit old-fashioned. It's based on these very kind of narrow definitions of like medical vision rather than your experience of the world.
Right.
And, you know, there are people who have very different experiences of sight to me, be it worse or better, who are considered blind by the system when I'm not.
Right.
I try not to have a bee in my bonnet about that because I do have what we have that we call it sight impaired rather than severely sight impaired. So partially sighted rather than blind. So I have had that registration for most of my life. And that, you know, that's good because it does at least recognize that I can't see stuff.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned you went without any sort of aids for, well, the last number I saw was like 28 years in reading some of your information. And, you know, I'm totally blind. And, you know, the first thing they did was put an ID cane in my hand and then graduate to the long cane. And I can't comprehend how you, as somebody partially sighted, was getting around London with no aids whatsoever. Like, your story is amazing to me.
Well, I think it was kind of a combination of my own stubbornness and the not super disability positive environments I'd been in.
Right.
But also I think, and I do believe this, and I do like to toot the horn of us visually impaired people who have useful residual vision. I think we do fall through the cracks. Mm. And I think I've spoken to a lot of people in the UK and the US where, especially when you're born partially sighted and you can't articulate that as a child, right? It's very difficult. And even my own parents have now said, we only now understand what you see because you talk about it, because we had no idea what you could see as a child. Mm-hmm. And my mum said, you know, she now kicks herself for telling me off because one day I would see a horse in the field and the next day I wouldn't see the blackboard in school. You know, and she was like, oh, a little liar. She just likes horses. So, yeah, I think it was very difficult because I adapted, and because I had it from childhood, that was my normal, and I think I developed a lot of coping mechanisms that I now recognize. But they were, I mean, exhausting and painful and made me very anxious, made me very tired all the time. You know, I now realize that I walk differently and like all kinds of stuff that it's been quite a revelation over the last 2 years, how much I've been missing out on. And I do feel a bit sad about that sometimes.
Sure.
I have one friend, so she has a slightly similar level of vision to me, a little bit different, a little bit worse. But she always calls me a baby blind, you know, because she went to a blind school. She used a cane from being a teenager. She's been a guide dog user for 5 years. She learned how to use assistive, you know, tech at school. And it's like I'm having to learn all these things as an adult, and it's quite a steep learning curve. And also because there is no clear prognosis about whether I will lose more sight or not. It's kind of a bit of an unknown future. So I feel like I have to skill up in advance for something that could happen in 5 years or could never happen, you know?
Yeah.
So that's quite intense.
Yeah, well, and it's, you know, and it's always interesting to talk to people because everybody has a different experience, and especially, you know, people who are, say, born blind. versus people who maybe develop some sort of a degenerative eye condition later in life.
Yeah.
That process that they each have to go through is very different. Especially, depending on when they develop that condition. We've talked to people who say have, who's a great example is Maria from Girl Gone Blind.
Yes.
She, with LHON, she didn't start to lose her vision, I believe, until her late 30s or into her 40s. And, she described, that grieving process that she went through sounded, incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And talk about learning curves and trying to learn all these skills later in life. It can be really challenging.
I also think that it's about, I always think it's difficult to compare experiences because I don't know what it's like to have full vision, but I do know what it's like to have a good day and a bad day. Mm-hmm. I have a good day where I can read, and I can play a video game for an hour or so, but I have days where I can't open my eyes and I have to hide in my bedroom and listen to podcasts, and right. I can't make a meal for myself because I don't have enough of those days yet to be as skilled up as I probably should be.
Right.
And it's those days that I then think, come on, you now know a lot of awesome blind people who do everything for themselves. And these days previously were always just such a wipeout for me because I didn't think I could do things on those days. But, if I master a screen reader, if I master voiceover on my phone, if I, finally invest in a bit more, gadgets around the kitchen instead of just relying on my partner to do it for me. Like those are the days I actually could claim a bit back.
Right.
And that's quite empowering, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in your story about, getting the cane for the first time and how empowering that was, and then getting your dog and how different that was, but still empowering in a different way,
no dog yet.
You're still on the waiting list? Okay.
Yeah, it's coming.
But even your experience, I think, where you had a week or 2 weeks training with the dog, that experience alone, not having to think about, okay, is there a patio table out here on the middle of the sidewalk? Is there a sandwich board? The dog just steering you around that. The whole thought processes of mobility change. And and it's the same with independent living, learning to cook or learning a screen reader. Everybody has their own way of processing, their blindness or their impairment. And we all have our own ways of doing things that work for us. I would go out on a limb and say not one method works for everybody because it just doesn't seem to be that way. So
for sure.
What works for you is great, and that will help you attain further success in everything you do.
Well, I hope so. I just think I think often something that I reflect on is how much I still have to battle against what I would call internalized ableism and those coping mechanisms that were not productive, that were not helping me, that were obscuring the support that I needed. I still have to fight those a fair bit, when the big thing that I learned to say, and it sounds so silly, especially when you live with sight loss for nearly 30 years, is I still have to learn to say, I can't see that.
Right.
Because when somebody used to point at, we have a big TV screen in our office. Now I can stand right beneath it and make it out. I watch TV at home, sometimes with audio description, sometimes not. If I'm, literally about 2 or 3 feet from a TV, I can just about watch it on a good day. Not for very long, but people would always point at things on the big TV in work and be like, oh, look at that. Oh, haven't they let themselves down? Or, oh, isn't that awful? And I just used to be like, oh, yeah. I didn't know what they were saying. I didn't know what they were pointing at. I hadn't a clue. But I was so embarrassed by saying, oh, actually, I can't see that. And my partner was very good at helping me say I can't see that, because we would be out with friends, and I love dogs. Like, this is one of the reasons I'm so excited about a guide dog, because I absolutely love dogs, and I found spending time with them very therapeutic. And I used to look after this like elderly grumpy dog that used to sleep in my lap when I was finishing my PhD, and she was great. But we were out one day, and we were with a friend who was not quite as aware of my vision. And she pointed and she was like, "Oh my God, that dog's so cute. Did you see it?" And I was just like, "Oh yeah, it was precious." My partner went, "You didn't see that, did you?" And I was like, "No, but I presume it was cute."
Yeah.
And it wasn't like he was being a dick and being like, "You can't, don't you lie, you can't see that shit." Like, it was just him saying, it's okay to say that you didn't see it. That's not, you've not done anything wrong. You know, it's not like you failed. You just physically can't see it, and that's okay. Like, I could take a photo and then you could look at it later. Like, that would be fine. You know, and he was very good at kind of empowering me to have those moments where I say, "You know what, damn it, I need some support." So that's been a very positive experience. I think that was the issue as well when I was younger, though. I was so determined not to be different, you know, and I think that's how everyone feels, right? And so the idea of carrying around a big white stick, I was just like, hell no way. Like, no way am I going to do that. Absolutely hell no. Like, that is not, I am not going to like put this great big label on myself that I'm a blind person. It sounds ridiculous. It does really sound ridiculous, but I used to forget. So I would be sat in the library, desperately trying to stare at some medieval manuscript for my history degree. And I would be in so much pain, and, you know, the whole world's wobbling around, and I can't, you know, I'm desperate that I won't be able to find my seat again in the library because everything looks the same and it's blurring. And only then I would be like, oh yeah, that's probably why I can't do this 9 hours a day like everyone else. And I get tired after 6 hours and have to go home and, you know, be sick or whatever. And it was, you know, it took so much like of a physical experience for me to confront it, because I emotionally and mentally denied it and like buried it inside myself so much that it took such visceral physical experiences for me to remember that again. Which I know sounds like complete blind privilege of like, oh, I forgot that I was blind. It's like, oh, well, some people definitely don't have that option. But yeah, I think it can be. And I think that is a similar experience for people I've spoken to who have gone through degenerative things, you know, clinging on to that.
That's right.
Last coping mechanism until it buckles. And I think it's a thing that the community needs to be a bit more open about, because I know I often get it. And I interact with people online, and so many people online have been great teachers to me, you know, teachers of skills that I've never had, and have opened up worlds of technology and information that I didn't even know existed.
Right.
But also it's like, oh my God, they're like a super blind person. They know how to do everything, and they just cope with everything. And, oh, I'm rubbish because I don't use voiceover all the time. And sometimes people give you crap as well. You know, I do have plenty of people online saying, oh, well, you're not properly blind. You're not properly blind.
Well,
you know, you don't speak for us. Oh, no, I've never claimed to speak for you. I only ever speak for myself.
And I think that's part of the problem too, is we have, you know, some blind, partially sighted people out there who are so fiercely independent, and good on them for having the confidence to do so. But then, you know, we have, you know, those of us, you know, speaking to myself, who doesn't travel independently with my cane because, well, I'm lazy, and terrified to do it here in the city. But at the same time, you know, sometimes the public perception of somebody who's blind is they had a family member or a relative who, you know, is out conquering the world as a blind person. Then they see you or me, and they're like, well, why aren't you doing what, you know, Jack is doing? Why are you so different? He's blind, you're blind. And, you know, I think that perception is slowly starting to change with all, you know, social media and, you know, all podcasts and all the information that's available to us now.
But then it's also, then there's the other public perception, which is quite the problem, isn't it? That, well, my little old grandma went blind and she never left the house again. So I must instantly assist you, like, with everything because she was so isolated and lonely, and you must be terrified and desperate as well.
Right.
That's right.
And there was, hence, just ask, don't grab.
Yep.
So I think there is like a middle ground there where I just wish blindness wasn't so homogenous, And that's a barrier I face with attitudes, when I am using my phone out in public and I get the comments and the tuts and the stares and the unpleasantness because there I am with my big white stick and then I'm texting away on WhatsApp, Although, as my friends and family point out, they can read my text messages from across the room. But, it's that middle ground that I think so many of us are fighting for and desperately trying to educate all the time. This technology is incredible. You understand how Siri works, so surely you can understand how a blind person's phone can work.
Right.
Hell, it's your phone. I could show you how to turn it on.
Yeah.
And it is this middle ground, I think. Yes, sometimes we do ourselves a disservice, and I try to be super aware of this because I was on that journey. I don't want anyone to look at me and be like, oh my God, she goes around London and she's got her everything together. Because I don't. I have days where I just burst into tears and instantly call an Uber and say, sod it, I don't care how much it costs, I can't face it.
Mm-hmm.
I have days I want to throw my cane in the bin.
Yeah.
I think everyone has those days. And
Sure.
I think it's just openness is the key, isn't it? It's about openness and that's what I try to do. And I try to talk about those days as well. It took me a very long time to get here. And yes, the white cane has been a huge boost to me, but I still have plenty of days where I stop in the corner and need, a nice hot bath and like not to talk to anyone for 2 days. But you don't always have that option. So you do have to pick yourself up again. But then that's why being part of an online community is amazing, because there's 12 other people there that go, I'm having that day.
Right.
This thing was hard, and that was actually the revelation for me, was when I started talking about this stuff, in little drips and drops, gradually started mentioning it. And then it's like someone opened a door to this whole secret kingdom that I'd never heard of, where there were dozens, hundreds, thousands of people having similar experiences to me. And it's been amazing to feel a part of. But also, like I say, there is a bit of me that feels very bittersweet that oh my days, I wish I'd found out about this 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But then maybe I wouldn't have been ready for it. Maybe this is the time it had to come. I was no longer feeling safe traveling independently. I was avoiding it. And luckily I found the right organization to support me at the right time. So yes, it's been a wild ride, I would say.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Twitter campaign, the Just Ask, Don't Grab campaign, and give us because I think it really has struck a chord with the community. I think because so many people have had that experience. So just give us an idea of how that all started.
Well, it did start the same way. It was, I started using the white cane. I started with the ID cane, the symbol cane. And I had been given one of those as a teenager by a social worker, and I hated it. And my mum was like, you have to hold it when you're crossing the road. And I was like, not bloody holding it when I'm crossing the road. No 16-year-old wants to do that, right? And I was like, everyone is going to, I'm going to get punched by some bully for holding this. So I'd always had these very negative associations with the cane. And, but I realized pretty quickly that the symbol cane, and I know a lot of people use it and they find it very valuable, but I did not. I found it pointless. I was like, I'm waving around this little white conductor's baton. People think I'm on my way to a symphony. People don't know what this is. It's not touching the ground. It just seemed pointless to me. It wasn't no one was getting out my way or giving me a seat. And I thought, well, I'll get one of the big long canes, because I really honestly didn't appreciate what the mobility side of things. I just thought, well, that's a proper blind person symbol. That's what I need. And then people will just get out of my way when I'm on the tube and they might give me a seat. Anyway, I found out that you had to have training, and I was like, oh, God, what training do you need to, like, hold a stick? Because I was, exactly, I was a dick. And I was like, didn't appreciate, like, went from being like, oh, this thing is awful to, oh, God, I guess I'll have to have one just so I don't, like, fall down the stairs or whatever. And eventually, you know, managed to access some training through guide dogs. And, like, you know, it opened up this whole world to me, like, it was like I discovered I had a new sense that I'd never, you know, this sense of kind of tactile life that I'd never experienced before. And that was incredible. But then the kind of, you know, the flip side of this magical journey of discovery was that suddenly I'd gone from being an invisible disabled person to a visible disabled person.
Right.
And I think it is because I have those two perspectives that I can offer something quite, you know, I know that people didn't used to grab me in the street, right?
Right.
When I didn't hold a big white stick, little old ladies did not used to drag me across the road.
Yeah, you looked like everybody else.
And so I knew that there was something different here. Mm. And I was suspicious. I thought, well, you know, maybe it's because I'm a bit younger. I don't claim to be very young anymore. I'm like hitting the big 30 in July. But, you know, I'm a youngish woman. I am in London, like maybe this is like a me thing, you know, maybe holding this is particular to me, which is slightly arrogant, but I was kind of just so shocked by it happening. I didn't really have any way of processing it. And so I started tweeting about it, and I just said, like, I think it was May 2017 I did the first tweet about it. And I said, oh, you know, I was getting on the train and this person just like pulled me into the train carriage and didn't say anything. And it was really weird and I didn't like it and it was frightening. And then honestly, instantly 7 or 8 people popped up and they said, oh yeah, that happens to me every day. That happens to me all the time.
Yep.
Oh, I'm a wheelchair user. People grab my chair and push me around the shop in it without asking. Oh yes, I use crutches. Somebody pulled one out of my arm the other day.
Jeez.
And I was thinking, what? What? What is this? What is this lunacy? You know, what is this? Like, this is unbelievable. This is completely, I can't believe that is happening to other people, you know, and I was so shocked by it. And I started sort of talking and it kept happening to me. And I began to find it quite upsetting because it is an upsetting experience.
Right.
And I kept saying, you know, this is really upsetting. Like, I really don't like this. This is, you know, I don't have peripheral vision. When someone comes at me from the side and touches me, I have no idea where they've come from or what their intentions are. Because let's face it, we've all had the dodgy intentions as well as part of this whole issue. And I said, right, I must just have to, why do people want to grab me? You know, and I went through this whole process, you know, why do they want to grab me? Okay, so they think I'm blind, totally blind, presumably, or just that anyone with low vision is so incapable that they don't warrant communicating with first.
Right.
And I said, but they must think that they're helping me. So I went through this process and I thought, well, for the majority of these people, they think they're doing a nice thing and they do have good intentions. Now, I'll say until the end of days that good intentions do not justify unpleasant actions.
That's true.
Because their intentions are not as important as my feelings when they do something to me. Like, that's not, you know, just because nice, helpful, you know, Sally comes along and wants to pull me on the train, that affects me, and it doesn't matter how helpful she wanted to be, it had a bad impact.
Right.
And I thought, well, if I, like, you know, rant and rave about this, I'm just going to be that angry blind woman. And so I thought, well, let's translate this into something constructive, right? Because if there are good intentions for the majority of people, they just need equipping with what feels like a very basic and obvious solution. But clearly it's a message that needs hammering home a little bit. And I remember I was just chatting with some online friends, and yeah, I said, all I want is for people just to ask me and not grab me. And I found myself saying that again and again. I just want them to ask me and not grab me. And I thought, well, that sounds like a pretty just ask, don't grab. It's a pretty simple concept.
Yep.
Makes a good hashtag. Let's go with it. And I just started using it every time an incident happened. I tweeted about it if I had time, and I put the hashtag on it. And other people started sharing it, and more and more. And it was like a flood of people saying, I thought this just happened to me. I had no idea. And then, you know, the shock of non-disabled people saying, I just can't believe this happens. And I still get a lot of disbelief where people are like, no, this can't happen. This can't happen. And then I link them to the hundreds of tweets I've got, you know, the pages and threads of tweets I've got of people saying, I was dragged across a road today.
Yep.
Just ask, don't grab. I was pushed around a coffee shop today. Just ask, don't grab. And it's all different people with different disabilities, you know, and it seems to be something hardwired into society that still considers a lot of disabled people incapable,
Right,
and vulnerable and unable to communicate what they need or want. And that actually there is this still idea, and I think it is a paternalistic hangover of when disabled people were not able to access society independently and perhaps were institutionalized or kept in homes, in family homes. There is this feeling that we need to be looked after.
Right.
And I think it's about combating that and turning that nice person who wants to give you a hand, allowing them to do it in a way that is, you know, nice. It's nice to help people. I never disagree with that. It's very nice to help people. But it's about doing it and encouraging people to do it in an empowering way.
right.
In a way that enables, that facilitates, that makes a positive difference. And not in a way that it's about dominating or taking away autonomy or making presumptions about a situation. And that's really the message I want out there, is that help is fantastic, but it needs to be respectful, it needs to be polite, and it needs to actually be helpful. So, you know, a couple of years, it's still going. It has its kind of moments where, you know, another media outlet notices it or another fine podcaster wants to talk about it. So I hope it'll keep kind of rumbling on. I'm using a little camera now, which is going to hopefully start capturing some of the incidents.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, so many people said in the last couple of years, so many people are like, oh, you should wear a camera, you should wear a camera. And I was like, all right, I'll wear the camera. Which is its own, like, accessible technology experience.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, you know, we've both Ryan and I, we've worked in the assistive technology field for many, many years. And we, you know, it's a story that we hear over and over the years, you know, from clients who have similar stories. You know, it's funny, we have a really close friend of the show that actually jokes about developing an electrified taser suit that so that anyone who grabs her, she can just, you know, hit a button and give them a bit of a jolt. I
know, and the worst thing is, and bless them, I think people mean well when they say this, but like, honestly, if I had £1 for every time someone said to me, oh, you should just hit them with your cane, and I reply, well, my aim isn't very good, what with the visual impairment and all.
Yeah, it is, you know, and I think a really important component of all of this is education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sure, I think you're absolutely right. A lot of people have the best intentions at heart, but they just don't have the education necessary, or they don't think it through when they do this.
Yeah, I think I always wonder if it's a bit worse in the UK because there's such a Britishness about talking to strangers. It's something I very much like and admire in North Americans is you're very good at just chatting to people you don't know. And something I like to do. Right. But British people are not very good at it. And there is an awkwardness around disability in the UK. And, you know, charities done research that has found things like, you know, 1 in 5 people will actively avoid a conversation with a disabled person in the UK, you know, lots of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is something that happens, and it's not, I know because of people that tweet me, I know it's not limited to the UK, but there seems to be a moment where someone sees me as a disabled person and they feel the impulse to intervene in whatever I'm doing, going up or down a set of stairs, boarding a train, waiting at a road crossing. And they're so worried in their heads about offending me. And that's what people always say, oh, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to offend anyone. And I say, well, grabbing me by the arm and dragging me across the road is more offensive than saying, hi, do you need a hand?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think people get in such a flap and they probably see me. And in their heads, I think they go, oh, my God, oh, she's blind. Oh, my God, what do I do? Do I need to help her? Oh, my God, she's going to get off the train. Oh, my God, she's going to fall over. Oh, it's a grab her. You know, and then that's how their mind goes. And actually, yeah, it's just hit pause and remember that I am also a human being. And you could just say, you're all right. Do you need any help? And it's so simple.
Right.
But I think it is unfortunately combating generations of social cultural attitudes about disability.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm not delusional. I don't think a hashtag is going to fix the whole thing. But like you say, people do seem to be getting it, you know. And it is nice because I do get people contact me and say, oh, I was out and about today and I, you know, saw a blind person or I saw a person wheelchair user. And I asked them if they need any help and I helped them. And I'm like, yay, well done you. Have a cookie. No, I'm always very nice, but it is interesting sometimes how much praise people want for not assaulting someone.
Yeah. And, you know, and honestly, like if they really want to help, like help by becoming an advocate for making public spaces more accessible.
I agree. And I often say that. I say, you know what the follow-up action is to walk around your workplace, walk around your town, walk around your local train station. Are there ramps? Are there lifts?
Yep.
Are there disabled people in the spaces you use? And if not, why not?
That's right.
Because again, the defense I always get from, and again, it is from some people within the community, well, you're ruining help for everyone. No one's ever going to help us again now. They're going to be so terrified to help us that we will die out as a species because no one will help blind people ever again and we'll all get hit by cars. And I'm like, okay, sure. I always say, well, they're being kind. They're being kind. I say, well, someone who's truly kind and truly wants to be helpful is going to want to learn. And the people, and I'm sure we've all experienced it, when you say, ow, actually, can you not grab me, please? And they swear at you and they call you this and they call you that. Oh, I was just trying to help. Right. They have a go at you. And you think, that's not a kind person. A kind person is the one that goes, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. How can I help?
Yeah.
That's a kind person.
Yeah, that's right.
An entitled person that probably just wanted to push you out of the way or was doing it for their own reasons because they wanted to brag about helping a blind person across the road at their next dinner party.
Yeah, that's right.
Not a kind person. And actually, if those people are put off grabbing blind people or wheelchair users or assistance dog handlers or people with canes or crutches or intellectual disabilities, neurodiverse people, if all of us are free from the people who want to grab us and not listen to us, I don't think that's a bad thing. And I'm going to be quite keen on putting them off.
Yeah.
And I don't really mind if they stop, quote unquote, helping us because we're not finding it very helpful.
That's right.
Although there I go, apparently speaking for everyone. But
well, listen, you know, I think that it is really important for people to be more vocal. And, you know, again, that's the real importance of online communities. And, you know, people can make their voices heard in a way that they never have before. And I think that people need to do more of it. People need to be vocal about these things because that's the only way that things are going to get better and that people are going to be educated.
And I'm absolutely sure because, you know what, I am going through a huge process of learning all the time. Like, I absolutely like have suddenly popped up and been like, hi, I've discovered that I'm disabled and I have this whole idea about that thing. I'm very aware of that. But, you know, there are people online that are just incredible activists and who I could just, well, I have to try not to read their Twitter feed the whole day because I learn so much from them and I correct myself, you know. I realize I use language that isn't acceptable. I'm pretty sure, you know, even in this conversation, I've probably said words that I'll think, no, you shouldn't use that phrase anymore. You know better than that. You know, I think that I try to be myself, open to that process of education and learning all the time because I don't have every experience. You know, I don't know what it's like to be a woman of color with an invisible disability and chronic pain in the States. You know, I live in a country with free public health care.
Right.
You know, like that is a huge privilege. And, you know, if I ever do require treatment or support with my eyesight, it will be free. You know, I was able to access long cane mobility training for free. Yes, this whole system with that is problematic in this country because a lot of the funding has been cut for the local authority government services. But, you know, and I was able to go to a charity to access that, you know, and that's a huge privilege. And, you know, I have to recognize that all the time and learn from people. And it's important to put your hands up and go, you know what, I've got that wrong. And I am sure future generations of much more educated and better activists than me will turn around to be like, ugh, that blonde historian, she used all the wrong, she was wrong. She got that stuff wrong. And I'll probably have to say, you know what, I think I probably was a bit wrong with that one. And you just apologize and you say, I want to learn how to be better. I'm going to go away. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to hopefully improve.
Well, you know, listen, if more people had that attitude, I think it would be a much better world.
Wow. I think it takes, you just have to, you know, I find I have to bite my tongue because like everyone instantly gets defensive, don't they? When I get called out, I instantly want to be like, well, just piss off. Or, you know, be really rude. But I have to be like, you know what? Maybe there's a point to be listened to here. Maybe I'll just go away and think about that. And I might still end up disagreeing with the person. But I always try to engage in some debate until I'm like, oh, this is a bot. I think I'll stop now.
Listen, you know, keep up the good work. I love reading your day-to-day experiences, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. So,
well, I hope so.
And I'm looking forward to the body cam.
The video footage.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, #white cane cam. There's been a few out already. I've got them scheduled. They're coming out. They tend to be short clips, about 30 seconds-ish. I'm wearing it on occasional journeys because, you know, I do the same commute every day, and I mean, that's boring. But yeah, I'm trying to capture it. I want it to be like a mix of, you know, things that are challenges, problematic stuff, coming across access issues, bumping into A-boards and bikes and stuff.
Sure.
But also trying to be like, this is how I navigate the world. You know, this is my perspective. This is how I use a white cane. This is what I've been trained to do. That stuff that I didn't even realize that was part of holding the big white stick.
Right.
And people do seem to be interested. Like one of the better received videos has just been how I get guided down a set of stairs. You know, because I think that is the kind of thing that people panic about all the time. I mean,
yes.
They see a blind person heading towards the stairs. They're terrified. So I think people really, they want to learn. They find us slightly curious as like social objects, I think. And people, you know, they just, like the phone thing, you know, about people learning about how people use phones and assistive technology. Like people love finding out that stuff.
That's true.
Or in the UK, pedestrian crossings, so controlled crossings with traffic lights, we have on the button box, the walk, don't walk box, there is a tactile spinning cone on the underside of the box. So you press the button, the wait button, and when the signal goes to cross the green man here, if it's working, there is a little spinning cone underneath the box. And that works really well when they can't have an auditory signal, because it's either a complicated junction, so people might, you know, cross into the wrong lane of traffic or whatever. But it also helps deafblind people. And
Right.
whenever I show people that, oh my God, they love it. They love finding out about that little cone. It makes their day. And then I know they go and tell like 13 other people, did you know there's this cone on the underside of the... Oh, and isn't that clever? And people love that. People love the little, it's just like the accessible hacks of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's such a shame that we don't get more of them, because that is such a classic design solution, right? It's so simple. It's non-intrusive. It massively benefits a whole group of people. And it's so easy to install. And yet people make such a fuss about access and making things accessible. And I think the spinning cone and tactile pavement is just the classic example, because tactile pavement, people would have said it's ugly, we don't want this. And now it's just a normal part of most urban landscapes in the
Right.
UK. It's still laid incorrectly and it needs more in rural areas. But it's such a classic example where you can go, does that bother you? Does that bumpy pavement bother you? You probably have never even noticed it. But actually that saves lives every day.
That's right.
And that's kind of the message I try to talk about accessibility when people think it's going to be such a faff. And, talk to the experts, talk to people, like you guys, like you're always saying, you could have built this in from the start.
That's right.
You could have included this from the beginning of this process. And you've just made a rod for your own back by not thinking about it and not having an inclusive approach. So, yeah, I guess that's my mini rant on accessibility.
Well, listen, it saves us doing the rant, because I love it. We could just sit back and let the guests do the rant instead of us doing it.
You're regretting it now. I'm a terrible interview subject because I just talk.
No, are you kidding? You're a dream. We love guests like that. This is perfect.
Is there anything else you wanna ask?
but it is true. Like, and it's frustrating because it's like you guys could have saved yourself money and time if you had just
Did it from the start.
designed it from the beginning, instead of now you have to tear stuff down and add it on.
Yeah.
It's just
Comes back to that
ridiculous.
bolt-on accessibility, right?
Don't even get us started about our country and accessibility. It's an ongoing battle, and
Yeah.
We're getting there.
You're much more, what's the word? Inclined to use the law, I think. You're a little bit more litigious in North America.
Yeah, we really are.
Well, the U.S. for sure. We're in Canada, and Canada's a little bit more, I think, laid back. Like, we don't have...
A bit more apologetic, right?
We are, yeah. we don't
we're-
decide to go and sue everybody just because their website's not accessible. We'll try a few other channels first before we go down that road.
Yeah.
But
we'll apologize.
that's right. Oh, we're sorry I couldn't use your website. It's all me, not you.
I lived with a lovely Canadian lady for about 3 months, and she was a good friend during my PhD. She legitimately apologized at the start of every sentence.
Yeah,
Like she used to say sorry as like a greeting. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we've got it down to a science. It's
I think that's why the Canadians and the Brits still kind of have this fundamental connection, though, because
absolutely.
in the UK, people apologise to inanimate objects for bumping into them, which as a cane user is a nightmare, frankly.
Yeah, well, I apologize all the time. If I'm out walking with my wife and I hit something, I say, I'm sorry. And my wife, Linda, will say, well, that was a pole or that was a table or something. Like, I have no idea.
You never know, though,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
The worst. And especially because I've got some residual vision and I realise what I've done pretty quickly. It's when I take out dogs. Oh, God, I feel awful. Because especially, obviously you hit their little back legs and I'm not... I try to be like a very gentle cane user, but then you you feel it, and then I look around and it's like, oh my God, I've just taken out a dog. Or a small child, that's always the worst. And you just feel so awful. And it's like, I know it's not my fault, but I feel awful. I had a woman, I was emerging from the top of an escalator, and I was, using the technique to get off the escalator and started sweeping to get towards the ticket barrier. And because of the tube stations are crushed in such small spaces architecturally, they have lots of entrances and exits that you don't get a good line of sight on, even if you did have full vision. And I was, looking straight ahead to where the ticket barrier is. And I'm sweeping away, and honestly, I just saw this like blur fly over my cane and like thump down on my left side. And I looked over and it was this tiny little lady. She was so petite and lovely. And I just felt she had gone like Superman over my cane. And I was like, oh my God. And she instantly got up. She was fine. But she went over and she went, I'm so sorry. And I was like, wait, oh no, you technically should be sorry, but now I feel guilty that you said sorry to me, and we're at an impasse here. And I was like, as long as you're okay, I'm sorry. Sorry for being blind.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Best use of the cane is at the mall at Christmas time. When there's so many crowds, you pull the cane out and you start sweeping it, everybody's jumping out of your way.
Yeah, I like all the different like hops and jumps people do over them. I think I might try and put a little compilation of that together. Like in at number 10, it's busy businessman vaulting over the cane.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to the meme.
My other half, he describes it as going rogue. Like he's guiding me and he might have to get out his wallet or something for a minute and he just says, go rogue. And then I just, go forwards on my own. And sometimes I do think, especially when we're shopping somewhere, he does leave it a little bit longer than he needs because he's like, like Moses parting the Red Sea. This is really helpful. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's great for you. It's actually quite a lot of hard work for me.
We'll definitely get you back on once you get your dog. Yeah,
well, hopefully it will come sooner rather than later. I have a very complicated list of needs. Mm-hmm. And those needs somewhat changed during the waiting list process. Right. There's only one charity that does it in the UK. And there's one other smaller one, but it's hardly known at all. And, compared to North America, like service dogs are only just really becoming a thing more broadly apart from guide dogs.
Right.
And it's just a big waiting list in London. And because I have residual vision, that's a specific challenge with a match. Because I have such a busy job and quite a kind of sporadic, I have different meetings all over the city and stuff. So it needs to be a pretty kind of adaptable, confident hound. And I think I don't mind waiting. That's the process. Mm-hmm. Two people that I went on the wait list at the same time with have just been matched. Definitely not bitter about that at all. No, I'm really happy for them. They're both lovely ladies. So yeah, it is a wait, but I'm so excited for it because I love my cane and I'm never going to stop loving my cane because it was the thing that kind of gave me my life, really.
Right.
And I know that sounds a bit cheesy and dramatic, but I am, and people who've known me for a long time say this now, I am a happier person now that I can't see that. And because I hold that white stick in my hand.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing. And it allowed me to embrace that badge of disability and just connect with myself in a way that has just given me so much purpose and confidence and joy in my life. And I found this whole community of people to share that with. And it's just been an incredible privilege, really. And then really nice, awesome people like you let me ramble about it for nearly an hour and just listen. My cane will always be my best pal. Mm-hmm. I'll be devastated if it breaks, this first one. I think I'll just burst into tears.
So did you name it?
Yes. So it's a really nerdy niche name, and I like the name, but no one else really gets the name. So It's called Sting. Which is after the sword in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings that Bilbo and Frodo have.
Now, does it glow when it's around orcs?
And it glows when it's around orcs. And my logic is that they have to have a special little short sword because they're short people. And I'm quite diminutive, and mine is technically a child-sized cane. And it glows, when danger is near, like headlights. Yep. It's my kind of short weapon of war and safety. So kind of that's how I viewed it initially. This is my thing that's protecting me and keeping me safe for the first time. This is the thing that stops me falling downstairs or over curbs or bumping into things. That's kind of, it's like a silly name. Everyone said I should call it Michael, and I was like, that's really unoriginal. I'm not going to call it Michael.
One cane to rule them all.
Right? and bind them in the darkness.
Yeah. All right. Hey, before we let you go, tell us a little bit about the blog and where people can find that if they're interested in learning more about you.
Okay, I have to get the URL right. Hang on. So it's caneadventures.blog. I'm not the best blogger. I'm a little bit sporadic. I do have other people blog for me. I blog when something cool or interesting happens. One thing that I'm trying to do, which your more technologically minded fans might be interested in, is I'm doing accessible video game reviews.
Oh.
So I review video games from kind of a low vision perspective. I've done a couple of posts about that. So that's calling myself the blind button masher.
Really? Oh,
I'm hoping to get into twitching and streaming, hopefully.
Oh, that would be brilliant.
But looking into the technique of that, because of how I have to play, I don't know how great it will be, but we'll see. And then, yeah, I hang out most of the time on Twitter. You can find me at Blonde Historian. And my hashtags that I use the most and kind of created, I did create them, let's be honest, is I use hashtag Cane Adventures and I do hashtag Just Ask, Don't Grab. And I really encourage people to use, both, because they're a nice way to kind of connect. And it's great when people use Just Ask, Don't Grab, because it just builds that picture.
Right.
And I always say that people should have, and I do this, positive and negative examples. Really celebrate those people who go out of their way to make a difference.
Right.
Because people do, and I put up a video of it the other day. I shouted into a train carriage and no one answered me to say where the train was going. And then this lovely little old-fashioned man came up to me and helped me in such a nice way. And, without him, I wouldn't have known which train to get on.
Right.
And he was great. He was a great guy. So it's about celebrating the positives and the negatives. It's not just about telling people off. It's about, really celebrating when help makes a difference to your day, because we do need help. That's part of the journey. It's saying, yeah, I don't know where I am. I'm lost. Or, I need a bit of help getting through this doorway or whatever.
Right.
I need you to help me find a seat, that kind of thing. And it's about equipping and encouraging people to do that. So, yeah, that's me. Say hi. I'm quite friendly. I like to meet people. I like to chat. Met up with Twitter people in real life as well. I'm one of those. I'm keen.
Excellent.
Well, hey, listen, we'll keep that in mind next time we're heading over to the UK. You never know.
Oh, please. Yeah, I'd love that.
Excellent. Well, and let us know if you ever decide to come to Canada.
I would like to go to Canada. I think it's, given that I did a whole PhD in British imperialism, I do have a slight investment in visiting Canada.
So you need to come over and see it for yourself then.
Yeah. Understand why people moved halfway around the globe to such a snowy, cold place.
That's right. Well, listen, hey, thanks so much again for taking some time out. Now you're free. Go to the pub. Have a pint for us.
Yeah, I will. Hopefully we'll win the quiz as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right. Thanks again, Amy, and take care and best of luck with the Twitter campaign. We'll be following you.
Great. Have a lovely day, guys. It was great talking to you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks.
You as well.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Wow, she's even cooler than I thought. Yeah. I love her Twitter feed so much. I get so entertained reading it, and it's. I think a lot of people get a lot out of it.
It's honest, right? It's open and honest. Yeah.
I really feel like it is a shame, because I really do feel like there are going to be those people that really point to somebody who's as vocal and honest as she is to be like, oh, she's bitter or she's angry. And it's so much not what it's about. Right. It's just about honesty, and it's about education.
Yep.
And she's absolutely right. There are people out there that just, see it as an opportunity to do something to make themselves feel better. So they'll just grab somebody and push them in a wheelchair, or, just grab them because, they want to feel better.
Well, and there's, ramifications. There's so many of us that have been standing on a curb listening to the traffic. Somebody pulls us across the street, yet at that, when they take you to the other side of the street, you weren't maybe going to cross that way. You were going to cross the other direction. So now your orientation and mobility skills have to kick in. It's like, okay, well, which way did they take me across?
Yeah.
Okay, now
sure.
I got to get back over to that other side. right? Like it's draining.
Well, and you know, I think that a lot of people don't even really understand the orientation and mobility process, or that people that
there is training involved.
That there is training involved, and that there's more to using a white cane than just, you know,
swinging it back and forth. Hoping you miss everything.
You know, there's a whole skill set there that a lot of people don't really realize, and so again, you know, it's education is so important. So that's why, you know, a Twitter campaign like Just Ask, Don't Grab is so important, because if it can, you know, get out there into the general public and start conversations, that's really what's going to provide the most use going forward. So
that's right. So all of you listeners out there, tell one person to follow Just Ask, Don't Grab.
Yeah.
Just one person. Have them tell one person.
Yeah.
Let's start a movement. Let's raise Amy to the top of the heap. Change the world.
Wow,
Take
it's
it
pretty
away, Michael.
lofty for a Tuesday. I'm going to be lucky to figure out my lunch, let alone change the world.
Oh, you're probably hitting.
You're putting a lot of
before you hit the
pressure
button.
on me here.
No, it just.
Do I have
you know,
breakfast for lunch, or do I have a?
Oh, I see.
What
One of those
do I
moods.
do?
Eh?
Well, it's because I'm going to hit McDonald's on the
I
way
see.
home, right? So breakfast all day has really impacted my life in a lot of ways, because now I got to decide if I want lunch or I want breakfast. I just wish they served hotcakes after. Oh wait, maybe they do.
I'm not sure. I'm sure you'll find out.
Yeah, actually, because I could really go for some hotcakes right now. Hotcakes and sausage.
That's funny.
Okay, well, we better end this because I'm getting hungry.
right.
Hey, Ryan.
Rob,
Where can people find us?
they can find us online at www.atbanter.com.
They can also drop us an email. Please do. Cowbell. Yeah, you're not even close. Cowbell at atbanter. No, forget it. It's now you've broken it. Cowbell at atbanter.com.
They can also find us on Facebook, ATBanter, and Twitter, AT_banter.
And Instagram, atbanter.
Look at that. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. Well, and, you know, stay tuned, because we do have the accessibility team from Google joining us on an upcoming show.
You can just say next week.
Okay, next week.
You can be
The Google accessibility team will be joining us.
next week. Look for it.
Yep, to talk about what was announced at Google I/O 2019.
All right, that is going to about do it for us this week. Thanks again, everybody, for listening in. Our thanks to Amy Kavanagh for joining us, and see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840, or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.